between the neighborhood and the school area to this more bigger and beautiful area of Lake Royal, Lake Wassler, and the community center in general. And down here, actually, we have some planting suggestions too that we thought of. But I think we can first talk about the windbreak evergreens here that Ava thought of.
So for the windbreaking, so as you guys know, you guys have a big Christmas tree right in the center here. So we wanted to propose some evergreens that can show as a sign of windbreaking because there's snow drift that you guys get during the winter months. And we wanted to propose different species that Joseph, the different species.
Oh, like the Picea avi. These evergreens are used just in general for like windbreaking, which is just a strategy to help block some snow off and pile up right there. We also had some like possible suggestions for meadows and up here, Maria, do you want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
so we have curb grasses of the tavern. We noticed that there was no break between the road and the tavern itself. So it's kind of dangerous to walk along that road. So we proposed curb plantings that would help break up the space. And we have plantings such as lucim and maybe some milkweed along the way, just some ornamental grasses.
And then also for my individual sites, you guys have Norway spruce currently. So I thought it would be a good idea to add more of that because it seems like it works pretty well in this area itself. And then also I wanted to add flowering dogwood for a specimen tree as well. And this would create a better idea in terms of later I'm going to talk more about this area. But in terms of the Norway spruce, I have an idea that I want to do with this tree overall. And then a bit about the design process. So we started off with some sketches down here and some concept diagrams. We wanted to do something very cohesive. As you see, like we have this corridor type of design going down here. So we wanted to try to connect all three together and try to make it interactive because we do know that you guys have a past history of like kind of have connection. So we try to like make things that that can bring people together and then also interaction things. So we can talk a bit more about that in the site plan.
So starting with my site plan, I have site plan up here, and then it goes to Joseph's site and then David's site. So my plan features elements like a fire pit. I wanted to connect it to the gazebo because I felt like those two would go well with each other for elements to view the lake and also for seasonal interest. When it's cold outside, we come out there, light a fire, and it'd be nice. And I also proposed a floating dock, which would be part of our lake walk around the area. And I have a planting berm here because I noticed that through the site, there's the train that runs through, and it might get a little noisy on the site. So I'm hoping the planting berm will kind of block the noise a little bit. And then I also have fire retention to just mitigate some of the stormwater runoff in that area. So for the sites, for my site, I have two sections so you can see onto the site what's going on. I have site H, the line up top, and site J, which is the line down here. And those are right here. This is the section from the floating dock and the boat ramp behind the gazebo. So you can see the floating dock is right here. It's 10 feet wide, so it can accommodate like wheelchairs and multiple people walking down together. And I also have a lookout over that's 5 feet. That's right next to the floating dock. So I noticed that there was like fishing on that side, but there was no place to kind of like fish safely. There was like the rock area that's there right now. So I think the lookout will help you be able to fish safer and also just have like a nice view of the lake. So you could do that while someone else is walking straight across. And then I also have a proposed fire pit and planting berm. This is the section for that. So you can see the gazebo here, and then the pathways that accommodate the seasonal plantings that I have, and then the fire pit here, which goes further to the planting berm. That's down there. And for my perspectives that I made, you can see the tavern here is that's where my perspective is. And this shows the crosswalk that we have proposed so the children have a safe way to get across the street onto the sidewalk. And we proposed sidewalk going across that area and over here past the tavern. And here is the curb planting that was proposed as well, and the cherry tree, so you can get a sense of the seasonal plantings that that's how it would look if it was to be put on the site. And then this is a perspective of the section I was just talking about with the fire pit and the pathway going to the gazebo and the lookout down here. And yeah.
So for my site down here in the middle, I was thinking about how to connect the kids from Cascade Elementary School and the different youth in the area. So I definitely wanted to put in an outdoor play space for them, especially. I was heavily inspired by something called Nature Play. And if you don't know, it uses a lot of materials, not just like the usual metal playground equipment that you usually see, but you can use recycled or local lumber, timber, rocks, boulders. That allows kids to explore and really use their imagination and creativity to help create this more fun play for them. Uh, so throughout the site, you guys can see through my perspective right here that you'll have like a different, like a wooden plane to reference the history with jets and the military, these like boulders that kids can climb on, like these layered lumbers in the back. And I want to point out that this perspective also is during the night. And I wanted to kind of create the sense of lighting that could be proposed throughout the site too. If you look up more closer at our sites, we have different lighting proposed inside. We felt that one way to help create stronger connection, not just between our designs, but between our corridors, was through different things like planting and lighting. Um, and so here you guys see this building that probably isn't there in real life. It's a potential commercial building site area that after our midpoint review, Andrew brought up how they might want to use this space also for some commercial buildings because of its location. And so when thinking about what building might be good next to a cafe, the Greenhouse Cafe, I was thinking about different areas that benefit from things like playgrounds. But that's just what it might look like if there is a building added onto the site. Um, and down here is the sections for my site. It just shows if you come, it might be hard to see from back there, but if you come up closer, it'll just show how much, how wide each of the things really are, like the lawn area and the different wood chip and paths area that are on the site. And I want to end off too with like this final perspective of how it might look with the meadows we talked about before.
Wrap it up.
So I guess real quick, so this is the site I had down here, but before I get into that, there is a wedding venue that you guys had here with a dock. So what we wanted to do was propose a enhancement to that. So this is what it looks like nighttime. So it just has the pergola, and you can see the path in the back as well, the floating dock, and then that's that. And then I also wanted to do something with the outside area in terms of like the community center. So something that can have similar vibes to that. So I was thinking maybe like an outside exercise area. So this is what it looks like in perspective. I'm kind of showing you like just outside equipment and what it would look like in that sense. And then also I had on top of that area, right next to the Greenhouse Cafe, it's like an outside gathering area because I remember going there, there wasn't any like outside seating much. So I thought that's something that can be connected to the cafe, but also serve as an area that people can come together. That would be right along this pink path too, that you can go from the gathering area to the outside workout area. And then, I'm sorry, one last thing I wanted to point out is on the McAfee Road, there's a traffic that comes down here that people drive pretty fast. So we wanted to propose a roundabout that I have in my section right over here. So the roundabout would serve as a purpose for circulation for cars, so people can drive slower and safer. And this is the the gate that you guys have here. So we wanted to propose that roundabout like right in the front. So that would just control traffic and make things more smooth. And then the last thing I wanted to point out is this section right here is what it will look like in terms of the outside workout area to the cafe gathering space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you have question time,
Yeah.
feedback.
Feedback. This is the first 10 minutes of feedback, question time.
Did you have a budget?
No.
No restrictions?
No.
This is let your imagination run
No,
wild.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to cap it.
I mean, my lovely wife back there who's hiding, because she's got to jump out, like, she runs Lakeside Hall. Like, I really, that view on the wedding dock is really cool, as long as you can keep the drunks from going in the lake. I don't know, it's kind of neat. We don't, I mean, Andrew and I go over everything all the time, and we don't ever really get to think like this. We always have to think about everything, all the reasons we can't do something. The windbreak, I think, is a big one. Snow is terrible along down here. And now that the school bus runs again, but how tall are those really tall trees that we have down there for the windbreak
Yeah,
on the parade field?
yeah, those trees usually go up to like 50 feet high when they're full grown, for sure.
The only consternation I'd have there is everybody loves that view across the parade field. Like, it's a double-edged sword. Like, when you sit in the cafe or you drive along McAfee Hill, it's such a pretty view of the mountain. And you might block that with those trees. But additionally, we're putting snow fence up this, we actually had a good snowstorm last week. We're putting snow fence up because we've got to do something to stop. It's a problem on McAfee Hill as well as like Warrior Drive. Super cool ideas though.
Put it in heated concrete.
No problem. No problem, yeah.
Yeah, I will say the feedback, we encouraged you to not be, hindered by some of the issues that we come across, because when you're kind of free from the reasons why you can't do something, there's still maybe, a nugget of an idea there. And so you guys have the ability to explore that. And then in a real world application, sometimes those get whittled down. But if you're always limiting yourself, you're never gonna potentially come up with that idea. And I think one that I know is going to be recurring is kind of the floating dock idea. And that was something that some of the different groups came up that was similar. And so it might be repeated here as well. And so,
It's a cool idea.
yeah.
Are the plants native? Everything you guys
They are,
suggested?
yeah.
With on focal box.
I'll just add, I've made a few minutes and, not quite sure exactly how your format is. It sounds like there'll be a couple discussions. Picea aves, Norway spruce, right? Oh, no, not native. In fact, you'll find, because I actually have to apply that to get the plans approved, Maryland's Forest Conservation Ordinance doesn't allow Picea aves as a planting because it's not native. It's a beautiful tree.
Is it invasive?
Yes.
Oh.
So as you move forward, you might want to change that tree type.
Maybe I shouldn't invite you here.
Real world practicality
Yeah.
when you go to implement. Did you mention in front of the tavern that the paving goes, I think you mentioned the tavern and the sidewalk enhancement? Yeah. So boy, that's some old school development there. And that's a great idea to fix that problem. Boy, if you want to see some really bad examples, just drive down into Waynesboro or Rouserville, which is a community off to the west. There is no landscape strip between the parking lot and the road. So that's a great addition to this plan for that path connection. So keep up the good thoughts on that. And sorry if I broke your bubble.
It's okay. I download you.
Tree.
Spruce tree?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. So just piggybacking to Fran, real world applications. So a lot of times, some of your trees, we use native adjacent to where, well, I'll use the ginkgo. Henry Clay brought the ginkgo over in the 1700s. In Lexington, they're all over. They were brought into Maryland. They've been in Maryland for hundreds of years, but they're still not considered native. So you still got a lot of plant species. So when you do get out and you have to deal with regulations and with state, sometimes those what we call native adjacents will pop in, and they're great trees, but unfortunately you can't use them. I like the idea that you guys started looking at the elementary school and dragging the corridor up. And you could easily start expanding, or, then, I assume your scope was just on the Fort Ritchie property itself, but I think you guys did a good job of tagging that as maybe another expansion out to where then you could get the community itself. And I guess the county controls everything around Fort Ritchie for regulations.
Well, for review and permitting,
Yeah,
yes,
for
but then,
permitting
in
stuff.
Maryland, like, that's a state highway route, McAfee Hill Road.
Okay.
What we call the loop around the parade field are county roads. A number of the other ones are private, so it's a mixed bag.
Okay.
And again, that's where here, I mean, you're kind of designing without looking at those division lines, which is good, because sometimes, again, we're restricted by what we.
It's a lot more
can't
fun.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
No doubt.
yeah, and I really like the fact that you've tagged in, and you got this elementary school, and then when you get facilities like this, and then you start looking at, public iconic elements. Back in the day, they were always forefront, schools, government buildings, and if that's a state highway road, they have all kinds of pedestrian funding, and then you start to look at, I like how you guys started at least identifying that to where you can expand your scope. And then, I don't know, maybe you get state and federal dollars to come in and start helping you out. Like the idea of introducing destination elements, such as your commercial building and greenhouse cafe. You got the corridor, like Fran says, it's nice because you got the loop road. You can start introducing parking on the backside that protects the main road itself. I think all your elements that you've identified are great. Starting to think about expanding the space. People love water and going out. I heard some key elements, which I'm glad to hear, and Fran and I are dealing with this all the time. ADA, you started thinking about accessibility. I think that's really great. And yeah, having to detail every handicap for Frederick County on the project, Fran.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Stop.
yeah. So a lot of good stuff coming in. I think, I like the fact that these guys started identifying outside of what your apparent scope corridor is, to where that can be expanded out.
Any more comments? Thank you, guys. The print out on the side, and the second thing, can you help?
Look, I found that send an example is one of the Massachusetts. The parts, yeah, theirs was a lot longer in terms of that, like, it's like. It's like, so you really show it, you're like, you're not getting a foundation.
I didn't know.
So.
I mean,
It's all your liability.
You don't have a liability. The county. Why do you think we have the lake?
you see,
Yeah, no, they have railings and everything.
should do, I know, a couple of them.
Figure that out.
For this team, I'm gonna say, we usually 3 teams, 1 withdraw. So they did it, 2 of them did it as much as they can do. So thank you, guys. I know you have a limitation. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jonah. I'm Shimon. And our site is on the western side of the site, towards like above the lakes. So to start off with our master plan, we really just wanted to focus on connecting the community to the beautiful nature and scenery that we have around the lake. To start off, we have we've like decided to put in sidewalks around all the way around the community because currently it's just the roads, like no curbs or anything for like safer walking. Not that inside is super like trafficy, but around this area, it would be much safer with sidewalks. So especially if we're having kids walking from the elementary school down to the community center and around the lakes, we would want sidewalks to accommodate that.
Yeah, so moving in a little closer, we've done a few cross sections to show, like, to highlight some of our main pedestrian additions. This first section is over by the school. Over here, I've added this 3-foot curb just to like, and this 6-foot little landscape buffer to like separate out the new 10-foot sidewalk we're adding in from the road in order to make sure kids don't like run into the road. The second section is over by where the railroad is near the Fort Ritchie gate. We've also added a 10-foot sidewalk here along with a 3-foot curb. And there's already some existing planting here and just to like, and we've also put in the tray to illustrate how like during like the time where it would be operating, that would work with our additions. And this final section would be by where Lakeside Hall is. It's just a little behind it. This is where we went out, when we went out to do site analysis, this is where the 60-foot like giant road was. We decided to kind of cut that down a bit and shorten it into a 20-foot road, adding in 4-foot adjacent bike lanes and about like 12 feet of parallel parking and a 6-foot buffer from the additional 10-foot sidewalk we're adding in to separate out again the road from the people.
Okay, moving on to our site plans, my area is over here. On my site, we have like a mostly abandoned area with this building that is completely run down and it's all surrounded by fencing, so you can't actually access it right now, but I'm proposing that we make a few adjustments so that the community can use this space by like, for example, cleaning it up so that we could make room for a drive-in theater, or maybe even a community garden, or an area where food trucks and things like that could come to draw in community members to be able to utilize a space that is right beside one of the beautiful lakes. And then I want to add a boardwalk that goes across to allow people to use this area for fishing more easily. And I'm also going to change this area behind the tennis court. We could clean it up a little and have a nice area where people can sit and watch the tennis if people want to come and watch their family and friends playing, as well as use that space to have picnics and play games like cornhole and things like that.
So now my main individual site is just inside of these 4 roads, but to connect from Jonah's site, we've added in these connecting roads. In terms of my individual site, I really wanted to stay true to our theme of, you know, walking through the past. I wanted to emphasize movement. So we didn't really focus on having too many like plaza or seating areas because we don't want, you know, this to be a place you linger. We want it to be a place you move, the main attraction of my site per se would be this little nature play space similar to something the first group had over here, where people of all ages can play with rocks or recycled materials we could use to like do little stepping stones or jungle gyms or other sorts of additions. I also really want to emphasize the existing baseball field. It's a little league field. I feel it's a really important part of the design because it's already there and it's something I didn't want to touch because I knew that it was important to the history of the site. So I want to design around it to complement the field. I also added in a few of my own little exercise areas, such as this new basketball field, which you can see over here on that section. People can come in here and play basketball, or this new exercise area where they can work out. And I covered it to make sure none of the equipment rusts or anything of the sort. Yeah. In terms of landscape performance, we made sure to increase a lot of we make sure to keep most of the existing planting, but also add in a few new ones like Nickel sylvatica, white oak to really increase the biodiversity of the site and also mitigate stormwater.
Thank you.
I think I said before, you guys probably had the hardest site just because of where it's located and getting feedback. And again, the number two, where you have the movie theater, that was something that you incorporated based on the feedback because that's the motor pool building. So they still are doing groundwater testing and everything there. So disturbing the soil underneath is like opening a can of worms. So trying to figure out what to do with that area that, keeps it impervious. I think you incorporated that suggestion well. Again, I think on the number three, like crossing Lake Wassler, still you might have some grade issues there because that lake is higher, and then how that crosses the road to connect through there might be some things to work out. But again, I think you incorporated the feedback and some of the suggestions, and again, you're a team of two, so you got a lot more work to do. So, good job.
I like the palm trees in the garden.
It would be difficult to do, but the different cross sections out front here, because we have such an old archaic sidewalk along McAfee Hill, separating that out to make it feel safer anyway and more walkable, I think would be a really good thing.
I will say, like, observationally, one of the discussions that we had that you see is changing as well for the road sections are, Maryland is very bike centric in terms of their design requirements. And so they often like to have these bike lanes, but I think you see more people using e-bikes and things that go quicker that can travel on the roadway. And I always like the idea of having a separated shared path and multi-use path that's plenty wide, just to have that separation, that buffer from the roadway. Because I think anytime you just get people and bikes out of the roadway, it's just safer because you're avoiding the conflict.
Their setbacks don't make any sense either. Like, it's so stupid. So I apologize, don't say that. But it is. So you get these designs from engineers that are incorporating Maryland's bike path rules, and they're just ridiculous most of the time. They're dangerous as all get, especially in mountain settings. They just don't make any sense. So, I mean, I'm 100% in agreement with Andrew on that.
It's a dilemma because they want to encourage, those facilities, but then you're also supposed to work towards vision zero, which is zero bike and pedestrian fatalities. And sometimes just by building those facilities, you're creating the conflict by definition. So that's something that's always a challenge. And again, I think in these areas and settings, we're not an urban area, so people don't, again, commute on a bicycle per se, or if they do, they're riding e-bikes now. So having the recreation pathways where people enjoy it and it feels safer is key. I think always the issue that John or the developers are going to have is parking is always a premium. So that's always a balance of trying to use the impervious area you have to maximize the parking versus creating the green space.
I like all the sidewalk considerations you're adding here. Golly, when I started 40 years ago, State Highway would discourage us on some plans putting public sidewalks in along the road. And there's been a full switch there. So hearing about none of these roads having sidewalks, people walk today and bike today a lot more than they did. So all these connections back to the community, I guess in years past, the base was kind of fenced off maybe more. And, I think those connections back to the adjacent community is a great start. Also like that idea about, reducing the surplus pavement width of that one road, so get some credits for that, offset credits for your stormwater.
Thank you.
Yes. Your top cross section you have with, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, that was talking about the shared bike path that's outside of your road cross section there. That's very popular now, especially on high volume roads. So we typically have the road itself, and then we try to provide some greenway. And a lot of times this greenway is now being put in for the stormwater ESD facilities. And then we'll have that shared use path, whether it be 8 feet, 10 feet, or 12 feet, depending upon what we think the volumes are going to be, walkers versus bikers and shared.
What about golf carts?
Golf carts. It's a mix-
Florida, I was just in Florida,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
golf carts are everywhere.
Yeah, and that's kind of a mixed bag. What I see, and it's kind of community.
Driven.
Yeah,
Well, when I
it's
have my
community
55
driven.
and
It's
older
very
community
specific.
and I lose my license, I want to be able to get in my golf cart and go to.
It is actively being discussed.
Yeah, I just recently down in Georgia, northern Georgia, to where it was all vehicle access. They thought about the pedestrian access points going through the neighborhood, but not on the street, but just like this design. But everybody moving in, there's clubhouse, there's a couple of restaurants, 2 golf courses.
It's the villages.
Yeah, it got marinas, fishing piers, and everybody wants to drive on golf carts. And I went down and
So you can drink and drive yourself home. That's the purpose.
I kind of got roped into it because our brother moved into this community. He goes, "Oh, my brother!" And next thing I know, I'm down there with one of the local land planning office. Yeah, the people working on it, and that's talk about how do you start to retrofit those. And was doing, of all places, Cecil County, Maryland. And it's a little community, and mostly it's going to be second homes that people are moving in. And that's came in and we did a retrofit and for the future phases to get golf cart lanes in.
I do like all the pathways. It'd be ideal. We have we just signed 5 more leases Sunday, so we have 70 residential units now. And we had the 55 and over community, already 2 of them already had golf carts and they want to bring them. So it's becoming an issue quickly.
So for your pass, I like the fact that you were introducing active recreation. Other things that you could probably do and start incorporating is spots. So you get a lot of people now that walk these paths, and then you can start to look to see, okay, how many miles or a portion of a mile, and then do you start adding in exercise facilities, and they're fairly easy, low maintenance. Some are very cheap to put in. So
Like you talk about the ones where you stop on your way.
correct, yeah.
Smithsburg has them.
Yeah.
They're nice.
And Montgomery County is starting to require you to incorporate, and we just wrapped up a project that we were required to incorporate that type of element in that community as well. So I think you got a lot of opportunities and what you were thinking about, and then you can start to maybe break those up.
Thank you.
Once again, like the fact that you're bringing in the walks into the water, the real world applications, more than likely they'll be hugging the shoreline. And Baker Park just recently did that in downtown Frederick. If anybody's from Frederick, and so I applaud you for thinking about that. And people just love the water and interact with the water. So good choices.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. team, third team, can you help? Okay.
I'll just leave it here. Take it off. Well, you're tall, but you're like. Oh. So you wanna level up?
Who can bring these things? Here, use this one to level up. Here, use this one for level the other one. What about yeah? This team is a 3 people team, and the Finita had a family emergency, so she, it happened this morning, so she couldn't come here. But there's a 3 people team. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nico Drummond.
I'm Laura, and Anita would be with us, and she was vital to all this, but unfortunately, couldn't be here.
Yeah, so starting out with our master plan, you're going to hear a similar theme that you heard for the past 2 groups. So we're trying to connect the Cascade Elementary School, the lake, the community center, and then our design that you can see south of the parade field. So by doing this, we have 4 sections that sort of show some general ideas for the sections, starting with the lake walk. So a review that we got from the first midpoint review was that over here where that water treatment facility is, wouldn't really be either attractive or viable for that lake walk section. So sort of the same idea you saw from the past group of bringing that lake walk across the lake would be cool on a boardwalk. And then moving down to the boulevard. So right here is currently 60 feet wide, which is larger than any normal road. And so we were thinking about ways to potentially use that in a different way, provide parking for the wedding venue additionally, but also think about it in phases. So now once additional houses go up or additional development happens, could we expand parallel parking to the other side? And so that sort of shows that the vegetation on the right could be planted initially, and then, 5, 10, 15 years down the line could be then switched again to some parallel parking.
Yeah, and then so like every other group, one of our main goals was to connect the Cascade Elementary School through the community center. And our way of doing it was just to initially bring along this road with additional sidewalks, but then since this property is owned by Ritchie, bumping it away from that road because it's highly trafficked, and then using some of that real estate to extend multiple sidewalks, different bike lanes. So in this section here, see, so you have existing parking along the parade field, but then you also have the 2B road, which is still there. But we propose adding a bike lane, obviously on the other side of the road. And then we wanted to separate the school walk and the pedestrian sidewalk just so that the kids know where they're going and whether it's different paving, signs, just some kind of signaling that this is where you're headed. So we divided up the pedestrian sidewalk and the school sidewalk, and then planted it with different vegetation, and that would be all along here. And then finally, so along the main road, we wanted to add some better sidewalks like other groups had discussed. So our method of doing that was just putting a small planting buffer next to the road and then having two sidewalks, one right here and then a tree here and then another one for bike lanes or high-speed travel. And then just a small sidewalk on the side where the resident houses are, because right now it's just small and narrow and very unsafe. So that's kind of our idea for increasing pedestrian circulation along these two main paths.
So down here where these orange buildings are, this area is where we focused on for the site that you see over here. So moving into sort of our site narrative, we coming into this site, it's big. Just for reference, from here to here is half a mile. So it might look sort of condensed on here, but it's really long. And so we had the challenge of how can we use this space to really engage the community, introduce some new elements, and provide an aspect that when there's events here or just local citizens want to come and enjoy the space, they can do so. So we started out with some concepts. Laura's going to explain.
Yeah, so I mean, entry was there for our midpoint, and we originally had most of this area as recreational use. We didn't have any of the housing or the retail, but we heard feedback from him that this is something that they wanted to expand to give an opportunity for people to live here. So we went through a lot of trace paper and a lot of different designs, as you can see here, and it was mostly just trying to incorporate ways that we can bring people to the space and sort of create a community inside of this area, and do it in a way that promotes intergenerational housing. So single family homes, townhomes, and then these finger buildings that you're working on renovating right now. And then kind of bringing it all together with a big plaza in the middle, with an amphitheater, and then a series of walkways, which we'll go into with some of our design goals in like a few minutes.
Yeah. So looking at some of our design features called out, just right off the bat, we're trying to reduce the amount of pervious surface on this site. So we got that down to about 61%, which is still high, but could be explored with green roofs or other options for our buildings. We have just over a half a mile nature and meadow walk, which is sort of seen through here, and you can walk sort of different some options with that. 9 single-family homes, 27,000 square feet of real estate space, retail space, 16 townhome lots, and a multi-age playground over here. Walking through some of our sections, Laura can kick it off down there.
So this is a cross section from this point right here on our site to this point right here. So across the area that we have vegetated and also added different pathways. So it's a little small, but we do have, this cuts through 4 different pathways, and we have our main loop, which is our half mile or a little over half mile loop. And then there's some offshoot pathways so that people could walk into the different styles of vegetation, whether it's our lowland meadow, because this site is actually very sloped. So our idea was to sort of play off of that and increase the amount of bioretention at the bottom by planting different vegetation that can tolerate, mostly different grasses, verbena, just a few key species that would look good at different times of the year, but it's not too much that you can't maintain it. And then, so moving up through the forest area, we wanted to really take this as an opportunity to bring back some of the tree species. Right now, this area is just a field, so it really does not do anything for ecology. So white oaks, red maples, spruce, just to give a different variety of textures for people and opportunities for them to engage with nature. And then up at the top, this is very top of our slope, so this is our sort of upland meadow. And these are just species that do better in those conditions. So like heath asters, tick seed, little blue stem, and this is also sort of the same style of a few key species, nothing too overwhelming, but enough to give color and interest during the different seasons. And then this is the perspective of that meadow walk with the different areas. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, so moving sort of east from the site, we get into sort of some of what the retail space could be. So, in our initial community meeting, we heard a lot of small town and preserving the culture of Cascade. And so we don't want to present anything, 5-story crazy anything, but something that can continue the economic development of this space, provide space for food or other retail opportunities. And then also one of the things that we heard in that initial meeting was that there was a desire for some sort of central event space. And we knew that, you know, we wanted this to be a flexible area for size, but also for what could go on there. So this amphitheater is a little split off our two boards, but it's this giant circular area here with a nice gradual grade through the site. So you can have large scale events, small scale events, or when it's not being used, it can kick ball around or be a nice little central spot. And then Benita really worked on these playgrounds over here. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to be here, but same sort of thing you've been hearing so far about nature play and sort of engaging youth in a new and really exciting way. So this is some of what that could look like, playing with logs and rocks and other pieces.
Yeah, and then just a critical element of our design is that we think about it in phases. So like we know that you're working on the finger buildings right now. So you know maybe your next step is just to add sort of the pathways so that people who are living over the neighborhoods have that. And then down the road you could introduce single family homes, the retail. So it's malleable in terms of what you guys are looking for, but it's just sort of a guideline to hopefully maybe help you guide through it.
Maybe this could be your new 55 over town.
You want that?
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you all.
John, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I love this one. The walkways, it's a lot back there behind the finger buildings. And there's some things like just the water line loops, exit gates. Boring old people stuff. But like that walkway, how wide? So you have a new Revival Drive that's in between Banfield. So you have some existing homes that are already businesses up above. And then this finger building side's almost done, where the gallery is, the museum now. This side's almost finished. How wide is from Revival Drive to its Record Avenue behind the finger buildings? How wide is that walkway? How wide is that green space?
Wide. How long is your section?
My section?
Yeah, this was.
It was definitely, well, each of these plots was like 100.
1 minute. I have a scale. So you can
Like,
actually.
where did you pick your elevation point? Because your elevation slopes a lot more in the back than it does in the front.
Yeah.
So you have a lot more elevation slope
So,
there than you do in the front.
From here to here.
Yeah.
So this, I took the section right here, and I mean, my scale is 1 inch equals 30 feet. I mean, this is not going to be long enough after college.
And the reason I ask that is because we've had every builder and their grandmother present building options that they want to do back there. And they get chopped up because of counties, grading restrictions and everything else. And you end up just all these nasty retaining walls and everything else. It just chops the look. And catching the grade on the house back there is very difficult. You know, something that's really, especially for 55 and over, is all slab on grade. You know, that gets tough when you're going down a hill and you've got a big steep, but there is enough level land to kind of do something like this that you have here, incorporating existing homes that are already back there.
Yeah.
And it has that top section has just a tremendous view.
Yeah.
As well from that point, up on Banfield. I was just wondering where you picked your elevation point.
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head that height, but I mean, this is all accurate in terms of what the slope is, like it's the scale. So it definitely does have a pretty decent slope, and our paths were kind of brought up so that they're not, you know, like sloped down. And we weren't sure in the sense that like once you guys put in homes, how that would change a lot of the grading.
It's a stormwater problem, but some of your the trees and the landscape in there, it does help with that. The county, you know, you get credits, and the county lets you, Andrew will maybe do stormwater mitigation. Right, Andrew? And then.
Get it right, get it right.
But it does help. I mean, some of that does help.
Well, we talked in your review, I mean, one of the stormwater mitigations is just simply like a berm. And so incorporating natural elements to capture the rainwater and, anyway, will you finish your thought?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, I was gonna say, I think you did an awesome job at incorporating the feedback.
That's awesome.
And on the practicality side, I think it works well. He thought about the phasing and really kind of the business side of where John's coming from. Because again, in your concept, a lot of that space was all just open space, which is great, like a landscape architect, you want to do it, but at the end of the day, to balance the revenue generating areas and like the request to have homes, and I think we use kind of the garden style terminology, and that's not my expertise, is how to lay all that out, but to essentially maximize the open space area to create, value and valuable lots, but still make it kind of a livable community. So I think you did well. I knew you cut out some things, like you had an idea for the museum.
Oh.
It was like a hill and a
Memorial.
and
I meant
so
to
you could
say
still
that,
incorporate.
yeah, I meant to say that when you were in here, because we're getting so many requests from different companies that were stationed here to do a memorial garden. And I didn't.
So maybe we need your rough draft.
Okay.
And it was in that
Where was
space,
that?
not where the forest
It
was.
was like
Forest
sort of
place.
in this area, but
And then elements could definitely come back.
yeah, a lot of the I mean, I had originally regraded that whole area in my first concept for that garden, so that it would work pretty well, but it was just.
We didn't tell her to take it out.
You know,
It's like, but I like the amphitheater idea, and so they had a lot of good ideas, but it was, again, they kind of pared it down and tried to make something that's like.
yeah, but it leaves it open to have, it's a lot of curves in those sidewalks. I know the guys have complained about that. But they'd be whiny. But it's really, this is a cool concept. I mean, for up there, I mean, it really kind of works. My whole thing is to not overload the site or overload the town. Like we just have a cool thing going in this little mountaintop area, and I don't want to put 10,000 homes in here, or even 500 homes. But you've got to do something as you kind of keep going. Like the rooftops help all the local businesses; they help everybody. But there's a point where you don't want to go over that point.
In your concept, you also had recommended changing the traffic flow. Is that still in this plan, or it's still two-way?
This road up here, Barrick Avenue, was the one that we had originally said to be one way, and pair with Castle Avenue as a sort of a loop. But in this concept, no, this is still two-way. It could be a sort of one way for events, so you have more fellow parking along there.
It's hard because we use Castle for everything in the summertime. It's always the farmer's market, it's all the events, we close Castle. You could still do that. Barrick is narrow for a two-way street. And you've got roof eaves that are, your ridge over there, the signs, I'm in the county easement. The county easement actually touches almost the front of the roof. That's how narrow the road is. So it is a narrow two-way street. There's no doubt about it. But Castle gets utilized so much now, especially with the tap room, and now people in this coming season are doing beer gardens. So you have to have certain setbacks for the alcohol, liquor board, and everything. There's just so much that goes into it. But this is cool. I mean, I like this. This is really neat.
I like your layout on the board. I think it's very like clean aesthetic, but yet you have all the details that you need.
Yeah, it's cool.
I don't know. The only thing I don't know anything about the history of the past or even really what the white boxes at the top on Barrett Road are, but I saw a single family and my first reaction was double load the road. Think about double loading I assume it's an existing road.
So those all, existing.
So that there's probably already infrastructure in there, sewer and water maybe. But that would be the first reaction of a developer, I guess.
When you say double load, what does that mean? Sorry.
Oh, put units on the other.
On both sides.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, if I can approach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Fred. I'm just like dying to get up here. And I don't know what your parameters are for this. So anything I say, I may be speaking out in left field, or excuse my French, out on wazoo. But so are these all one unit?
Yeah.
So is that like the front and that's the back?
Yes.
Okay, and then this is existing street,
Mhm.
and roughly we got, is it 20, 50?
It's 30 something.
30 something.
Yeah.
And so what Fran's talking about, you got an opportunity then to double load this one, so now you got the units. So maybe, I love this that you've done. I think you guys done a great job. And just seeing other, thinking, wow, you could create a botanical garden, you could, do all kinds of things to generate people for a destination and stuff. But, maybe it's like rethinking the, all right, do you then put some singles right up along here? And then that way, if, these are fronts and then you backs, and then you could like do two-sided architecture for fronts and backs.
Yeah,
And these kind of come,
there's grading
windows
plans.
and-
There's grading plans that have been submitted just that way so that you can do that behind. In the front, it's a little more accessible because of your elevations. In the back, it just gets sloppy. Like you're moving a lot of ground, and then the county's, they're making you set these.
I'm not making it. Absolutely. That's what we always got, beating up on the counties.
Oh, you're such a liar. So I usually call Andrew and I'm like, hey, can you make that? But
Yeah.
like the Barrack Avenue sets a kind of a nice elevation. But then in the front, it doesn't go up fast, but in the back side, it goes up quick.
Yeah, I came here for Thanksgiving and I was walking around.
You don't really realize
It's
it.
really steep.
Yeah, and the other thing Fran was talking about with townhomes, you start to look, and then there's one opportunity that you probably take these, push these up, get some zero lot up front. And then you maybe get another stick in the back, because what it's alluding to is that for builders, they want a minimum number of lifetime units.
Sure.
Because it just doesn't make sense. And this is the real world we live in. It's the bankers. And that drives a lot of this. So you got to generate that little income. And then, of course, we can redo stuff and start ripping out those structure proof. And maybe this shifts down, some of that shifts up, or you pull fingers in, work with your topo a little bit.
Some that's been a struggle, like the way the elevation goes up behind the finger buildings, is that right now below the finger, when you look up at the finger buildings or on Barrack Avenue, like it's such a cool strip. And now that the lights are on at night, you're like, man, look at this. It's coming up with what you put behind it so that it doesn't take away from what's there.
For those like protected.
Oh,
so-
yeah,
So the
absolutely.
barracks can't be.
I wish touch it.
Right, there's, yeah. the building-
Upside townhomes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So you
that's
put,
where
like,
it's like-
you catch that elevation with the townhome. There's been so many where you have the garage, it catches the elevation, so you get the range you go up the street.
Mhm.
But then you've got 20 feet or 30 feet of a townhome right behind the finger building.
Yeah.
And like we've had, it's a tough, like for a builder's got to have that number, as he was saying, so that they can, they can make this thing feasible. Yeah, we're a little different on the development side of this place where we're like, don't ruin it, and it's,
Well, you should have the whole back.
you do,
Don't we?
you do.
I have my lot. It's
Oh,
back
sure.
that way.
You and everybody else has their lot.
Exactly.
It's great. I mean, we love the dreams.
Put it all in front.
And what's great too, with a lot of 55 and older active adult, there's lots of product out there now that take up grade, because there's no easy sites left in the world. And so as you guys are getting out of school and you get your jobs, and it's every site's a challenge. And sometimes the challenge comes when somebody does something, and when somebody comes behind right next door, he's left with a huge headache. And I was talking to Fran like, what the heck are you guys doing? And it was like, well, at the time, that made sense, but now it totally screwed,
Yeah.
The barracks are tough because they're not accessible.
No, it's bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like we,
shoot,
like
easy
maybe,
spot.
you
Yeah, well, you saw how we had to do those concrete walks in behind them, especially so you could
Yeah.
meet ADA and some of it, everything. Like it's a challenge. They're not easy.
Yeah.
Water, sewer, and power in that little section that we have there, not a great time, but it's in. So, and we'll be, and now it's trying to accent is that as you get the rest of that. The other thing you said that's totally true here is that like when we map all this out before we get the machines out to put sewer lines, and it looks great on the map, but it's huge. Like when you stand at the one end and you've got all the sewer sticks piled up, you're like, it takes a while to get there. Sorry, man. I apologize.
Okay, great discussion.
The last thing is to be fair to last thing, so they have a 20 minute as well.
What's that? I'm trying. Oh, man,
Well,
I really like that too, because I'll walk out and walk over there.
You have it, it's like you're not getting over there.
You're not getting over there.
Some of these like big sidebars, you know, how they have that built basically like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And they have a lot of flippers.
It'd be nice if you could do that.
So then.
The junior, this is the first.
Oh, I know. Yeah, he's called, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
It's very. Yeah, he's all behind, I think it was.
It's like, look, it's not how it works.
But you must know.
Oh, absolutely.
So they, we have like an 80.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ellie. Nice to meet you. I'm Corinne. And my name is Ishana. Nice to meet you. So this was our interpretation of Ritchie. We had a few problems coming in, especially considering like the safety of some of the pedestrian infrastructure or lack thereof in spaces. So that's first what we wanted to address, establishing several types of pedestrian infrastructure that maximize the efficiency of the space while also accommodating for all kinds of people with different needs. So starting over here with this green section.
Yeah, so the green section is for neighborhood traffic primarily. So it has an 8-foot sidewalk with a 3-foot road. And it kind of goes through the residential areas. So there's houses on one side and a wooded area on the other. And that's kind of just helps to connect to the rest of Fort Ritchie.
Okay, and then additionally here, this is the spot just around the parade field and like it backs up to like rear. And it's 60 feet wide. So we also, like every other group, had struggled kind of figuring out what to do with all the spaces there. So we figured that we divide it into sidewalk with a planted buffer, an addition of bike lane, a 24-foot 2-lane road, and we proposed parallel parking along the opposite side that is like adjacent to the parade field. As far as like the multi-use trail.
Yeah, so we have multi-use trail sort of to give you a partial like loop that connects to the other types of circulation. We also have it in our individual site. So the multi-use trail is 10 foot wide and you can have a bike and people on the trail at the same time. Here's the section of it right here. You can see full slope down to the lake, but level here with a little swale for water. And on McAfee Road, this orange section, this is highly traveled. We had initially proposed, like the other groups, some sort of floating dock, but figured like try to circumvent the fact that people like this is a safety hazard. People are here considering it so highly traveled, and there's no some sort of fence or sidewalk or anything like that. So what we did was we did put in a sidewalk. In addition, we put in a fence, especially considering kids might be coming from Cascade Elementary, maybe to the community center. So something like a fence buffer would help with that safety aspect. Similarly with the orange pedestrian circulation, we have the purple one, which also has the fence buffer because it's a narrow area, just to keep the kids safe if they're traveling through.
Mhm. And moving on to our design goals, we wanted to ensure that spaces are accessible, functional, and safe for use by all pedestrians. In addition, we wanted to incorporate the existing environmental conditions into recreational facilities. We have a couple, I mean, to source revenue while still retaining a small town charm. I do know that that is something that a lot of people, a lot of residents were concerned about. We also wanted to minimize the environmental impact by using sustainable materials and incorporating systems like biospheres and retention.
Yeah, so kind of transitioning into our sites, our area is divided into two main places. This is area number one. Some of the concerns in the community that we try to address in this area is some members wanted more recreational spaces, safe spaces for kids to play in, concert venue, and also to emphasize water features. So this site, some of the features are sure. So Mimi trying to share this area. I kind of focused more on this part. She was more down here. So there was originally a rec field sort of right here, and we moved it up this way so that we could have some nature interactions. I'll let Shauna talk about that. But I focused on a mini golf course right here next to the ice cream shop. I associate those two together when I go to the beach and stuff, so I feel like that would be a cool thing to hear when the warmer months. There's a perspective of it right here. I titled it Miniature Ritchie. I figured it could be themed to incorporate some of the history, like we have the ice pond right here, some big mountains in the back, and then a miniature castle. Next, I have the concert venue pavilion. I just think another revenue opportunity, rent out for birthday parties or small concerts, gathering space. There's a bathroom here to accommodate people here, and if have any sporting events, that's an option. And then this is also a multi-use trail, so bikes and pedestrians can share it. Here is our Rain Garden Biosphere Walk. I just thought it would be, this is a huge site. It would be nice to have some naturey and also environmentally friendly areas. The section of that is right here. Just really immerse yourself with nature for a brief period of time before you continue on the trip.
Yeah, so continuing on with the immersion, right here in the corner, we decided to reforest this area and kind of make it into a picnic / bonfire situation, just a little perspective of it. So there'll be little like campfire pits with seating and picnic tables kind of in the woods. And there's a variety of different restorative planting. Try to focus on a lot of natives and plants that just look really pretty in the fall. I know a lot of people like to come up to Fort Ritchie to look at the fall colors, so kind of playing off that. Also on this site, if you go over here, this is a nature play space. I know some other groups have talked about it. This is a section of some proposed structures in it. So like building a climbing wall on the logs, having like stepping stones, a log fort, different natural elements that kids can play with, and it can even be made out of repurposed lumber. And right next to it, there's a small children's garden, which can kind of be a space for children to learn about different plants, observe like pollinators and native flora and fauna and more. And right next to it over here, community members had expressed that they wanted to daylight the stream that goes here. There's a huge underlying pipe, so we daylighted about a 50-foot portion of the stream. And then if you come along the path, this is our giant 4.5 acre disc golf course. These are kind of like the holes, so these are like the holes for disc golf. And then these arrows are like the pathway for you intended throw. And that's just another recreational feature that people can use. And then,
Okay, sure. So my section is site 2. It's noted on, and it's in between the two lakes, the Forebay and Lake Royal. And I had the challenge of connecting the two lakes because I realized that that's something that people have been considering. But I also wanted to stick with our theme of like recreational, some recreational aspects. With the first being that we wanted to put something like ice skating, because people do ice skate here on like Westler. It's shallow enough that it freezes in winter time. So we just thought that we could add a designated space, like a dock for where people could ice skate. We also wanted to turn the existing buildings into concession stands, where people could rent out skates or something like that. In addition to maybe sell concessions like hot chocolate or just anything that would make that time more of an experience. And then I also had the idea to turn this space in between the concessions buildings into like a community garden / edible forest, because that's also, well, my job is with a garden on campus, and that was the precedent, I think, for something like this. And with using one of the buildings as maybe a food pantry or something like that for community members who are maybe underserved or food insecure. And then the section in between the two lakes, I thought maybe we could turn into a memorial fountain to the boys, taking the existing conditions of the site and stepping them down in a stepped fountain with like a retaining wall on the side as the concessions buildings are to the east. And it might have something like black reflective material. The precedent for that was something with the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where the reflective material, you can see your reflection. And it's like this quiet moment of reflection in the audience. So other than that, there's a fishing bridge here, a designated spot for fishing, which I considered to.
And real quick, just some of the landscape performance benefits in our site is environmental. A lot of the trees that we're planting have reduced atmospheric carbon and help with stormwater management and reduce runoff. Social, because we have more pedestrian infrastructure, it'll hopefully increase connectivity in the community. And we have 7 new recreational amenities to also help encourage community engagement and economic, because we have 3 new revenue generating businesses. It'll hopefully help generate extra profit for Fort Ritchie. And an increase in activities around it can help increase real estate value.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love this. The 200,000 of profit annually, I would love to take this out. Probably not, but anyway, we had a gentleman who just laid us out at this golf course right where you have that. I love the mini golf idea. Ice cream sells. It's such a popular little business for us back there. We keep thinking we were going to move it or combine it with the cafe, but it is a profitable little business. This stuff is really cool. I mean, this is the draw. The thing that is good for us, it gets the site out there, is when people come and they stay. So when they start, like the best thing for us is when they come in, they have coffee at the greenhouse, they go to a wedding, they finish at the tap room, they stay overnight in a finger building, like they're always staying here. That's what moves the needle numbers wise, but it also gets the name of the place out there. It draws more business here. Like we had our best fall numbers wise in every business by 100 miles this year. So like these sorts of things where you can get a family of 5 can come and their kids have something to do. That's a big thing. The stream, I mean, Andrew and I have talked to that ad nauseum. She's big. That pipe is what, 12 feet?
You drive through it. That was one of the feedbacks, is making sure some kid doesn't get lost in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a gate, we have it gated so you can't go through there, only water can pass through, but it's huge. So when you have that stream there, you'd actually have from top of pipe to the bottom is like 12 feet. So you have such a large grading area you'd have to do to get people down to that stream. The state really wants it. The county wants it. I would like to see what it would look like, but it's a big project. Only the federal government has enough money to put a river in a pipe. The way they did it, under buildings, cut through storm drains. I mean, it's wild. Really cool though. This is awesome, guys. Really, really cool.
Yeah, I think you did a good job incorporating the feedback and again, thinking about creating destination spaces. I don't know if I mentioned it when we were down there, but I mean, ice cream's really big. Around here, we have an ice cream trail. It's Danielle, how many years running? And what kind of participation did we
haven't
have,
met
like,
here yet.
It's
We
huge.
had over 600 participants this year.
that do the whole thing? And
Do
there's
the whole
like,
thing.
The whole thing,
11
but it also
sites.
brings out people that don't complete the whole trail,
Mhm.
and it really draws business to each of the ice cream shops.
So, I mean, our Parks and Rec staff would be the better ones to tell you again what it's like on the pavilion side, but it's about putting those amenities together. And I know, you changed the location and the pathway, again, thinking about grandma, the wheelchair getting there in the bathrooms. And so having those things make it more practical. And I was like your graphics. So who drew that? Somebody drew the miniature golf course?
I did.
Yeah.
You said combining the lakes. How far did you go with it?
Just as far as taking, the existing, overflow and then just making it more of like, an official path, like established path, or like a fountain.
So like a dam breach and it's stepped down over a longer
Yeah.
distance.
The elevation killed us there. I would love nothing more than to let the back or the wheel loader get loose from that dam. And just see what one big lake looks like. It's so fun.
Yeah, well, we talked about it and he said, go for it, because from a stormwater standpoint, the volume control is all handled by the lower lake.
Yeah.
So really, it's just kind of a recreational feature, but the road access through there is what you're giving up. But go for it now to show us what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's malleable, but, yeah, I decided to take out the road just to see what the bounds would be, what I could do.
Well, a couple more ice heaves and that lake's gonna take the road off for us.
You have anything to say on the recreation side?
Like disc golf was a great idea. We just put courts in at Regional Park, one of our bigger parks, and we have people in there all year round. And it's easy recreation. It's very affordable. You can do it in groups. You can do it all the time. And on the operational side, there's not a lot of maintenance to it.
Is that a 3D perspective, hand drawn?
This, it was a combination of, hand-drawn stuff and Photoshop.
Okay, so you matched the two. Yeah, keying in, we're seeing a lot of municipalities, like the hand-drawn stuff. So I think over the years, you get all the Photoshops and all the other graphic stuff. And, we always get really good responses when we start to mix in with hand-drawn exhibits, just like the prior one too, with the little vignettes. I thought that was pretty smart, showing your evolution of how you started until where you finished. That helps tell the story too as well.
Any more questions? I think this is the end of project. Thank you. Thank you.